What's up, guys? My name is Cole Weaver. Welcome to my first YouTube video on this channel. Today we're going to be talking about high-stakes testing in education. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the pros, the cons, and the pros and cons for schools, teachers, and students alike. So yeah, let's get right into it. What are high-stakes tests? According to edglossary.org, a high-stakes test is any test used to make important decisions about students, educators, schools, or districts, most commonly for the purpose of accountability. The tests that I took, the high-stakes tests that I took in school, for example, were tests such as the Benchmark and the ACT Aspire. These were common in Arkansas when I was in elementary and middle school, and I definitely have a lot of memories of test days. So those are just for example, and I'm sure most of my viewers here have probably taken tests that are similar. Any standardized testing is going to be a high stakes test. So let's get into the pros of testing. For students, one of the pros of testing is that it gives them a standard measurement of performance in comparison to other students, so they can see how well they've done compared to the average. So it will tell them, like, you're in the 99th percentile for reading or for math, and you've done a really good job, or that you're in the 50th percentile. Maybe you should step it up. Maybe you should do better. So one of the pros for teachers is that it helps them understand what areas they've really done well in, and one of the ways they see this is from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So students take tests, and so the teachers can see like how their students have progressed throughout the year. So they really progressed. They can tell they've done a really good job of teaching. But another thing is, like, they can see, okay, my students really progressed in science and math, but they did not progress in reading. So I'm going to bring in activities to where they will progress in reading. So it's really good for teachers to see that. And it's also really good for schools because it gives them a measurable look at teachers in their own school districts. And they can compare teacher to teacher. For example, one teacher is consistently getting really high test scores, and they're doing really well compared to all the other ones. Okay, well then we're going to put this teacher up for promotions, or we're going to put them up to get a pay raise because they did really well. Or this teacher did really poorly compared to the teachers, so we're going to try to figure out a way where we can increase that teacher's test scores to where they're even with all the other ones. But also school districts can see how their scores compare to other schools, and this is going to be helpful so they can see how they align with schools in their district, schools their size, so that they can kind of see how they're doing and if they need to step it up or if they're doing really well. So just as there are lots of pros for high stakes testing, there's also lots of cons. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So the number one con that we see in high stakes testing is going to be that it's extremely stressful for everybody involved. This is going to be extremely stressful for students. It's going to be extremely stressful for teachers, and extremely stressful for school districts. And they all look a little bit different. They all tweak a little bit different, but it's stressful all the same for all of them. So for students who do not perform well on these tests can be held back and stopped from moving on to the next grade. These tests take place over a 3 or 4 day period, and so a student in the 4th grade or the 3rd grade, their entire next year can be decided by the fact that they did or did not do well on these tests in 3 days. Like, that's a big deal for them. That's going to be extremely stressful, so this is a big deal. Also, students are going to be pressurized by teachers and administrators to do well, which puts even more pressure on them. Teachers are going to be stressed out about it. And I remember, especially in my own experience, our principal would come in, our teachers would come in too, and they would say, like, make sure you get enough rest, make sure you eat breakfast, make sure you wake up at this time and take a shower on this morning, make sure you did blank. And they would give us a list of things that we needed to do. And they would say, do your best, make sure to do your best, make sure to do your best, make sure to do your best. And so we had so much pressure going into it. and a lot of that was added from our teachers and our administrators being really, really stressed about what was going on. So that is just a lot for students, but even more so for teachers. In most states in the nation, a teacher's evaluation is based off, at least in part, their students' test scores. A lot of teachers are based off, a good chunk of their evaluation is based off of their test scores, and that's a big deal. And that kind of thing can stick with you. That's a big deal for teachers. Also, for some teachers, such as in the Denver, Colorado school district, teachers are given performance-based pay, in which the better their students do, the more they get paid. So if your students do really well, you get paid well. If your students don't do very well, you don't get paid very well. So whenever you're talking about a teacher's pay, that's a big deal. They've got families to feed, so this is serious. And not only can high-stakes testing affect a teacher's salary, but in places such as Houston, Texas, they can be fired per ABC News. And that's like a teacher losing their job. That's going to stick with them. Whenever they go to apply for their next job, it's going to show like they were terminated. They're going to be asked, why were you terminated? Oh, it was because my students had low test scores. School districts aren't going to want to hire someone who has low test scores, a teacher who had low test scores. So that's a serious thing. If you have low test scores, you can be fired. That's a big deal for teachers. So it's extremely, extremely stressful for them. And one extreme negative for school district students and teachers is that often this stress will lead to teachers specifically teaching to test taking and the exact areas of which students will be tested on, and not teaching to a holistic and well-rounded student. If you're a teacher and you're talking about like your salary, your job is based off of how well your students do on these tests. You're not going to want to just teach to a whole well-rounded student. You're going to want to teach students to do really well on this test, so you look better, so you get paid more, or you keep your job. Like that's a big deal. And so therefore the education levels are going down, and the students aren't getting the quality education that they deserve. So the stresses and the cons that high-stakes testing has on schools is going to be that public schools receive their funding from the government, and when schools score poorly, they can receive sanctions as well as budget cuts. Also, low test scores give schools bad publicity. This is going to make the schools lose money because students are worth money. Each student that a school has every year, they're going to get so much money from the government for that kid. So say you have 10 kids that leave your school district, and each kid is worth $5,000, you're going to lose $50,000 from those 10 kids leaving. Your school district does. So that's going to put a strain on the schools. And these kids are going to be leaving because parents don't want to send their kids to a school where the education seems subpar. If you're scoring low on test scores and schools around you aren't, you're going to seem like your schooling, your education is not as good as those around you. So that's going to be hard on schools. This is specifically important to me and other future teachers because we need to know the expectations around high-stakes testing, and also the implications that high-stakes testing is going to have on our jobs, on our salary, and also know how that is going to affect us in the workforce. So that is all I have for you. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and a share. Also, if you are looking for more information on this topic, I found helpfulprofessor.com extremely helpful, and they had a lot of great information on this topic. So that's all I have. Thank you so much. Have a great day.